Powered by Go-Goat Sports and in partnership with TSN. Welcome to Season 3. This is Episode 4 of the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Infinity. Book your contactless test drive today at infinity.ca. All right, Ray. There's, again, every week we start the podcast, we say, man, we've got a lot of things to talk about. And this is one of the more exciting weeks because it's the kickoff of the NHL regular season, and it feels more special going into this week just in light of what we've endured for the better part of the last 2 years. So, aside from the travel, which is heavy lifting for you for sure, 82-game regular season, yeah, it's normal. It feels normal. And it won't be normal for those who are traveling with the clubs because there's just a lot of restrictions and things that have to be observed. So we'll get into all of that. We'll kind of look at some of the top teams in the league, some of the business off ice over the last week or so here on the podcast. But, before we get into the meat of headlines, your thoughts on Major League Baseball, the playoff game between Tampa Bay and Boston. You're a huge Red Sox fan. We've talked about that here on the pod before. And what a bizarre extension of a playoff game. 13th inning, and something happened that you, an aficionado of baseball,
yes,
once played in the Little League World Series.
Do you have some time? I'll tell you about it.
Had never seen this before. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm getting ready to fly to Tampa, and I had to connect where did I connect? Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I never watched. Do you ever watch that TV in the back on United? Or I never really watch it. I never pay attention. They're in the back, the back of the seats.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I look up and I see this guy's watching tennis, and I'm like, hey, the baseball game's on. So I click over. It's the 9th inning, and I'm watching. So I'm a Sox fan. Tampa's just tied it up. The Red Sox bullpen sucks, so they give up another lead. And so now they get to the 13th. There's 2 out. Runner at first. Kevin Kiermaier hits a ball to right field. It hits the fence, and Hunter Renfroe, Boston's right fielder's running back. It hits the fence, bounces out, hits him in the leg, and bounces over the fence. Now, by this time, the runner's like 2 steps from third base. They rule it. The rule is it's a ground rule double. Had that ball not gone back over the fence, there was 0 chance that the runner doesn't score.
Yeah, right.
And Kiermaier would have been at least at third base. But as it is, they got to go back. Next guy, I think he struck out. Bottom of the 13th, Christian Vasquez for the Red Sox walks one off with a home run. It's the goofiest thing, but it's a rule. And so the reason it's interesting to me is that we talk about in hockey about what a crappy rule this is and what a terrible thing this is, and why don't they video review that? Every sport's got them.
Yeah.
And I have been playing baseball as far as I can remember. I think I started like in 1973. I have never seen this. Not like this. And so it's in the rule book somewhere, and they pulled up the rule. But I will say this. After the game, by the time I landed in Tampa,
Mm-hmm.
The Major League Baseball had much quicker, but it put an explanation out. They put the section of the rule book out, and it was explained. Like it or not, it's a rule. Now, should they look at it in the summer or in the winter? Sure, maybe, but the rule's out there.
Yeah, but most sports, I think, do that, right? The NHL does that and take pride in that. Like if there's a rule
but I'm saying, Dregs, be real proactive with it.
Yeah.
Because if you become more proactive, even the official giving an explanation after the game.
Yeah.
The one pool reporter thing. If you do that, people might disagree, but then they go,
yeah,
but that's it.
Well, but isn't this a classic example though of why you revisit rules? Because again, to bring it back to the National Hockey League, they'll always say they use the extreme. Well, what if it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final? Well, it doesn't matter. If it's a playoff game, it's going to have severe implication. That's why you talk about it, and that's why baseball will move forward on this as well. That's interesting.
Yeah. Hey, I got to say this though, Dregs. I'm going to take a quick little sidebar. Start today's podcast. It's day after Canadian Thanksgiving. So, I miss Thanksgiving at home, but lots to be grateful for at home. I'm 1 year out from my knee replacement surgery, and my knee feels so much better. There were a lot of days where I thought, what the hell did I just do? And seriously, man, I'm like, because you can't undo it, right? They threw the hinge in there and that's it. But I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be in Tampa to start my first year at ESPN. And I'm literally right across the street from the arena, from Emily Arena. And we get going tomorrow with the banner raising for Pittsburgh at Tampa. And here we go. It's time to get going.
So just because, and we'll only talk about this once because you'll probably have to go through it 100 times this season. Very quickly, give us the COVID-19 lowdown. How many times you have to be tested, have been tested, leaving Canada, coming into Florida, all of that.
Well, I think I'm moving into 11th test since the middle of August. I got tested on Friday in Vancouver. Fortunately negative, so I can get on the plane. As soon as we finish the podcast here, it's Monday morning. I'm heading over to my local Walgreens to get tested again so I can fly back on Wednesday to Ottawa for the Toronto-Ottawa Senators home opener for TSN. Every time you come in, you get swabbed up. I tell you, my nose has never been cleaner.
I'm looking
and
at
I will
it
say
right
this
now.
coming from Canada to Tampa, it's like you come to the moon.
Yeah.
It is like literally completely different worlds. And
so do you fly Vancouver, Toronto, Tampa?
No, I went Vancouver, Denver. That was the quickest one yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's like, you see people walking around and there's more people around, and across the street last night, like at the arena, there was a Harry Styles concert. I heard some people buzzing in the lobby about that this morning. And I'm like, man, that seems just so foreign right now to us in Canada.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the game, obviously. Again, we're recording episode 4 here on Monday morning. Also looking forward to Nate Schmidt, defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets, who's never a man short on words.
I was just going to say, if he can get over his shyness, he's going to be fun.
He's going to join us on the podcast, and we're going to nail him down with a new feature this season on Ray Dregs and Ray Dregs socials, and that's the Ray Dregs Rapid Fire. So we'll take a run at Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets coming up as well. Headlines are presented by our friends at Boston Pizza. All right, Ray. Into headlines this week. There's still a lot of off-ice stuff going on. Eventually the Jack Eichel saga is going to be remedied, whatever that is. Jack is going to have to determine which procedure he's allowed to have. If he's holding out for the disc replacement, then that's what it'll be, and feels like he's going to have to get that via trade out of Buffalo. So rather than talk about what is or isn't happening with Eichel, why don't we talk about what we know and analyze the two big signings in the last couple of days, right? You had Mika Zibanejad signs long-term with the New York Rangers, 8 years at $8.5 million. Feels like a long time for Zibanejad, but, he's been a good player. He's progressed upward through his NHL career. Yeah. And I wonder,
here's the thing,
of Eichel. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of Eichel, does this put that Ranger speculation on the back burner when you invest and commit to a player like Zibanejad as your top center, for the foreseeable future?
Well, unless Buffalo wants to eat $5 million of Eichel's $10 million, I don't know how it could work. They're going to pay Zibanejad $8.5 million. Here's the thing. I do think labels stick to people, even when it's unfair that they stick to people. Right. So I think for a lot of people, that image of Zibanejad is a young, not really in tip-top condition, erratic center with Ottawa. That's not who he is.
No.
This is a young man that is in the very top players in the game, yet won't be talked about in that top level.
Right.
He's big and he's fast and he scores, and I really like him a lot. Don't forget, at one time when the Senators thought they were close, which was a total miscalculation, not in hindsight, but in the moment, it was a total miscalculation. They traded Mika Zibanejad for Derek Brassard.
That's a tough one.
Swing and a miss.
Yeah.
But I think they miscalculated what they were at the time. But in any case, it is a long time. But Chris Drury is the general manager. He's probably not worried about 8 years from now.
No, I wouldn't think so.
So you got to get rolling, and like you got to. They've got a really impressive young group of players.
Mm-hmm.
Can they take that next step? We'll see. They went and added a bunch of beef in the offseason. They got a new coach in Gerard Gallant, who I'm a huge fan of. I think they're going to be good.
Yeah. Alexander Barkov, Sasha Barkov, gets an extension in Florida. We all knew this was coming. Probably took a little bit longer than he was hoping. I don't know if he was expecting to get it done earlier. And Billy Zito, the GM of the Panthers, had some other things to take care of, but always knew that Barkov was a priority for obvious reasons. 8 years, 80 schmills, so a $10 million AAV, and $72 million of that in signing bonus money. When you look at the structure of that deal, I made this reference on radio in Ottawa, and I don't think that the Senators loved the reference. But if I'm Brady Tkachuk, and I'm not comparing Tkachuk to Barkov here, but I am looking at the structure of that contract and going, see, that's what I want. I want those type of numbers, not in the 80 million range, but along the lines of how that contract is put together. He makes so much money in signing bonus.
I have, of the things I don't understand, and there's many. One is why teams buckle on the signing bonuses like they do. I mean, to that level.
Yeah.
So if Sasha Barkov signs his name right, signs it correctly, he's got $72 million.
Done deal. Yeah.
It makes the contract virtually unbuyoutable, if that's
for sure
a word.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind the money. Good for him, $10 million bucks. But the structure of the contract, I just cannot ever get my head around. You know what's crazy though? When you read this money, the money for Panarin and Barkov and guys that are at $10 million bucks, and when Jaromir Jagr was at the peak of his career, he was making $11 million.
I know.
That was 20 years ago. This is what the cap does.
Yeah.
This is one of the things the cap does.
Yeah. We're reminded of that by Alan Walsh every
Yes, Alan does. Yeah. Alan does put that out there. You may notice Alan's his opinions are pretty clear. But look, man, Barkov's a hell of a player. And
like all around too.
The one other thing I would say around these big contracts, I found really noteworthy was Minnesota has a player, young guy, really good young player, Matt Boldy, broke his ankle this past week. And Billy Guerin, the general manager, said, he can get, he's got a decision to make between surgery or rehab, and he's going to let us know what he's going to do. Yeah. And you think that sent alarm bells or warnings up in the air from Buffalo.
For sure it does.
It's a really tight, tough subject to get your head around, but I'm sure the Eichel camp is saying, take a look at that. Why aren't we afforded the same?
Absolutely. All right, well, let's do a quick tour, if we could, of some of the best teams around the NHL as we get set for Game 1 of the regular season. We've talked about Barkov and the Florida Panthers. By the way, they've got Jonathan Huberdeau going into the final year of his contract.
What a player he's turned out to be.
Really strong, and that's going to be a hefty number. So cap issues are going to hit Florida, no doubt about that. But Florida is in that mix, right, of teams that you have to consider top teams in the league going in. And then, as always, the Tampa Bay Lightning remain contender, a top contender. Dave Poulin keeps trying to convince me that they're going to win 3 in a row, 3 Stanley Cups in a row. I'm not as convinced, but I mean, how could you possibly exclude them from that conversation?
Okay, so here's the thing. When I look at Tampa's lineup, Dregs, so much is made of Barclay Goodrow and Yanni Gourde and Blake Coleman's departure. And it should be.
Line.
They were a fabulous line for them. But this is what they were able to do. They were able to keep their top 6 forwards intact.
Yeah.
They were able to keep their top 4 defensemen intact. They've got the best goalie in the world. Looks like a pretty good team to me still. Oh, by the way, Victor Hedman's got 2 healthy knees right now because as he was on our podcast like a minute and a half after surgery last year.
That was awesome, yeah.
And so he's back and I'm looking forward to seeing him tomorrow, but apparently he's just, like his mobility is clearly different.
That's bad news for every other team.
Oh, but so I think Tampa's the best team. I still do. I'm a little iffy on Colorado. I know I don't mean as being one of the top teams. Is Darcy Kemper as good as Philip Grubauer? I don't know. Yeah. We're going to find out. Well, they don't really have a backup goalie because Francouz got hurt again. And they've got this Jonas Johansson, who was a 6th round pick in Buffalo. He's their backup. Right. They get pretty thin up front in a hurry. But they're undeniably one of the best. Vegas is in there too.
Yeah.
What do you think of their center ice position, Dregs? I'm a little, as an old centerman, I'm a little, I don't know, a lot of hope on Nolan Patrick. To rebound after a couple of lost years, but that seems like a little bit of a question mark to me.
Me too, and every time I raise it with anyone associated with the Vegas Golden Knights, they're quick to defend the position. But as you would expect they would, right? You're not going to get Kelly McCrimmon or Pete DeBoer to say, yeah, you know what, we're weak up the middle. There isn't a team, there might be a couple of teams in the league that wouldn't like to upgrade at center, right. But because of the cap situation in Vegas, it's pretty clear that they had to go somewhat cheaper. And McCrimmon is banking on an old relationship, to your point, with Nolan Patrick, going back to the Brandon Wheat Kings and hoping that his good health can remain in check. Colorado Vegas looks like a pretty solid Western final. In our prognosticating, in looking ahead for our preview show on TSN, I took Tampa Bay and the Islanders in the Eastern final. Which way did you go?
I'm not different. I think the Islanders are really good, and what they've done, given their if you look at just the names on their roster and then their ages, talk about a team built for now.
Yeah.
I mean, like they've got some guys. They've got they're getting there. I mean, even guys. It's hard to believe, but like Nelson and Bailey, they've been there forever. Like they're getting into the time of their careers where now's their best time to be frontline players. They've got Paul Mary. They've got Andy Green is 38 and he's 7 years younger than Zdeno Chara. Right? Like so, they're going to have to manage a little bit. Sure. There's a question around Varlamov. He hasn't been on the ice yet in goal. And so their number one goaltender, who I think is really good, is Ilya Sorokin. He's got 22 games of NHL experience. Mm-hmm. But they're well coached. We know that. They're good. The Islanders are really good. How good's Boston? I mean, like, I'm not walking by Boston yet. I think Charlie McAvoy has a monster year. Can Jeremy Swayman be their number one goalie and carry the mail, or is Linus Ullmark going to do that? Like, there's questions there. You know who else is good? And it's not because it's just our podcast, is Toronto.
Yeah.
I think the Leafs are good. I really do. I think they're better than they were last year. I like their lineup better. There's less hope. There's less hope. Like, I hope this guy can do it. I hope this guy can do it. Their goaltending, I don't know. I think it's okay. Yeah. I don't think it's going to kill them. Their defense, as long as nobody gets hurt, in that top four, but maybe Rasmus Sandin's ready to take a bigger role.
Yeah, I think he is.
And I'm with you, Dregs. I think he's good.
Yeah.
And it seems to be you're either in one of two camps with the Leafs. Either you think they're the best or you think they suck.
Yeah.
And I think they're better than last year, and they were pretty good last year.
Yeah.
Another year of leather on the skin, a little more stuff bounces off, a little more understanding and experience.
Yeah.
I think that helps. I like Toronto. I also like Edmonton. I know their goaltending takes all kinds of kicks because Mike Smith's, I don't know, how old's Mike Smith these days? 39?
Well,
is he 40 yet?
Yeah, pushing 40. He might be 40 already. I'll check, but yeah.
But I think Edmonton's good. They added some players. You might bark at the length of Hyman's contract, but that's for another day. For right now, I think they're pretty good. And they're in a division that's not great. And the other team I'll say, Dregs, is Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Winnipeg's good. They're a good team. As long as Hellebuck doesn't get hurt, they're good.
Yeah. And look, we've got Nate Schmidt coming up from the Winnipeg Jets, and he'll talk to us about the improvements made on that blue line. Mike Smith, by the way, is still 39, so just to wrap that up, the thing that I like about what Edmonton has done, you talked about Zach Hyman's contract. Kenny Holland isn't worrying about Zach Hyman's contract, right? He's trying to win a Stanley Cup. That's obviously what he's trying to do. And so the big question mark, if we're putting one, is on goaltending. I think that Mika Koskinen is going to be better. It sounds like he's in a better headspace, feels more comfortable with his surroundings, with his family and all of that. If they get quality goaltending out of him, that takes some of the heat off Mike Smith. If they don't, then Kenny's going to have to dig into his bag of tricks and come up with something at the trade deadline. And I got to tell you, Ray, people keep telling me the Anaheim Ducks are in full rebuild. So what do you, not to derail to talk deeply about Anaheim, but if John Gibson is a man in play via trade, then I think Edmonton has got to be a team that looks long and hard at John Gibson between now and the deadline.
You know what? If they're in full rebuild, I'm going to go to a comment DJ Smith was talking to Gord Miller and myself. We were just getting ready for one of the preseason games. And he says, when your rebuild really starts is when you trade your last good player. And what he meant by that was, the Senators had offloaded a couple of players.
Yeah.
And then they traded Jean-Gabriel Pageau. And he was kind of that last connect to when the Senators were really good in that when they went to the conference final. I think it was 2017. And he said when they traded Pageau, then the rebuild starts. And I was like, that's a really good point.
It is.
So you're either in full rebuild or you're not. And if you're not, you're dead. Yeah. It seems to me if you're not in full rebuild and your team isn't very good, you're in job preservation mode. Because you got to go one way or the other, or else you're going to be stuck in the middle.
Let's wrap up headlines with a quick thought on the Ulevy trade to the Florida Panthers by the Vancouver Canucks. Was this just obvious, given the attention that Ulevy brought to himself through camp, or unrelated? It was just time.
It was time. Look, there's a job wide open there, and he couldn't separate himself from Brad Hunt, who has been a really good, like a 4A player, really good in the American League, a good player in the NHL, but not an everyday player. Ulevy's the 5th pick in the draft, I think he was, in his draft year. And he just never could make it. He had some injury problems. There's a real lack of A, mobility, and B, the ability to read the play, to read the rush, when to back off, when to stay into it. And I think Vancouver got, I'll say tired of waiting, but you can only wait so long.
Yeah.
And so they made a trade. Now, Vancouver's in a little bit of a jackpot here because they put Hamonic on waivers, and because he's not coming right now.
Right.
And so he's not going to get claimed, I wouldn't think. And, he will be by the time this airs, that'll be decided. But then that goes up, then that's on their cap. You can't just make them go away. Like, oh man, a little bit of a mess for them.
Really is. All right, our interview in episode 4 is with Winnipeg Jets defenseman Nate Schmidt, and it's brought to you by Canadian Club Whiskey, who are asking, are you over beer? Why not try refreshing CC ginger ale? Throw some lime in there if you want. Next time you're having a drink or watching the game. All right, Nate Schmidt now joining us on the Ray Dregs Hockey Podcast. And Nate, this shouldn't be new to you, right? I mean, change of scenery. You go from Wash to Vegas, from Vegas to Vancouver, Vancouver to Winnipeg. And yeah, there's lots of stuff that happens in between all of those moves, but you grew up in Minnesota, for heaven's sake. So everybody who thinks of Winnipeg thinks about the deep, the dark winter when it's minus 40 degrees Celsius. That's not going to be a big deal for you, is it?
I mean, okay, let's get two things straight here. One, yes, I have grown up just 5 hours south of here, and so I know what that's like. Living in the desert for a few years does soften you up a little bit when it comes to January, and all of a sudden just a long pair of pants and a golf shirt, and you're out on the course. But you know what? Like, this is something that I, even for the last couple of weeks of being here, these are the things I kind of miss, the fall, and be able to go out hunting with the guys, having bonfires and doing those things that you got to do growing up, and you know those seasons back. So it's honestly been great. It's been fantastic so far. Camp's gone really well. So I am got in a really good place here moving forward with how things are going and how I'm feeling with this change.
Now, when you got to Vegas, how long did it take before you started telling everyone back home it's a dry heat? and like, was it better than you thought? Like, could you even have imagined what it was going to be like?
I'm pretty sure I said that after my brother called me after a snowstorm and I was wearing a goose down jacket at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. He's like, what are you doing? I go, I'm freezing, man. It's cold here. It's dry wind. No, it was awesome. You can't really describe, especially that first year, right? You never really be able to, Barry Trotz told me, he said, man, you're going to have so much fun when you go there. Like, it's just the best time you ever had. I know it stinks that you're leaving. I know that you're probably upset right now. And I was like, yeah, we're leaving a really good team, a winning team that ended up beating us that year, but which is ironic. But no, he's like, you're going to have, no matter what happens, you'll have so much fun that first year. Is nothing like, nothing else, And so I'm actually, you look at the Seattle guys, like, I know that they're going to have an absolute blast. It's just, what happens. I don't know if they're good, bad, win, lose, or draw. Like, it's just going to be a lot of fun to be with the group and be able to kind of create your own culture. That was the coolest part about it. Every place that you've ever gone to, there's been an established culture there. They have things they do. And there it was kind of, we had 20 guys and a bunch of staff and been like, so how do we want to do this? Like, what do we want to do today? How are we doing this? And so it was really kind of it's a surreal moment to be able to see all that stuff kind of play out and be able to do it all ourselves. You had to create what you wanted to create there as a group.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, now you come to Winnipeg that's got a pretty established culture. A longtime coach, great coach in Paul Maurice, and veterans in Blake Wheeler and Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, et cetera, that have kind of established a culture. You're a pretty energetic guy. Like, how do you jump into that?
Man, having a guy to run with is awesome. So Brandon Dillon and I have been to play off each other as much as we can, right? And I think I think that makes a huge difference in running mate. And also makes a huge difference that Paul Stasny, one of the vets, also knows how I am. And so I can kind of get him a little bit going a little bit too, which it helps when you got older veteran guys, kind of on your, you're not trying to reel them in. I swear I'm not this bad all the time, but no, it's been, with Wheels too. I knew him. He's a University of Minnesota guy. And so, I've seen him around, worked out with him in some summers. And so the transition's actually been really easy, right? It's just been, I've known some guys already, the guys I didn't know, guys that had played with him. Cody Eakin was just here. And so he gets to know guys really well. And you talk with him. I've really liked the group so far. We got a good group. And I know that we said that, but we had a nice little, team event Sunday, got here yesterday or on Saturday, got here yesterday. And Paul Murray just walks in and just has a smirk on his face. He walked in the first day and I was like, he knows what the guys were yesterday. He knows that, in a team bonding event. And he just got a little shit-eating grin on his face. Gets it. And that's what I think it's really important for a group and having that type of that's the things that we missed last year. The things you just didn't have. Being able to do that makes a huge difference.
Now, you bring up last year, and it would be hard to think of a team that went through a more difficult season than you guys did in Vancouver. I mean, it was just a mess. And like when you were in the middle of it, like, can you see that, or are you just trying to swim and keep your head above water?
It's a little bit of both. When the schedule came out and we saw what the schedule was going to look like at the back half of the year when we went through COVID that time with the team, we're used to playing a lot of games, a lot of days, back half of the year, but that one was incredible. I mean, you couldn't work out. You couldn't do anything. It was just surviving at the point, when you get down to the end, you're, hey guys, we got our 4th game in 5 days, or, we're playing a 6 and 9, it's just like, it's a lot. It was incredibly tough on a lot of the guys. I mean, you come back in and the first 2 games, you end up winning. You beat the Maple Leafs twice. And we thought, wow, maybe we can get back into this. But then all of a sudden you saw after a week, the energy levels just start to plummet from guys. It's just, you couldn't sustain that for that long. And it just made it tough. It was hard, because as a player, you want to be able to be at your best all the time. And you can't. There's some guys that got hit pretty good by it that couldn't really even recover from it. We played 4 games in 5 or 6 nights, and then we have an off day, and you'd see guys come into the rink, and it was just heads down. You really couldn't get yourself back. I always just trying to fight back to neutral.
So you go through all that with the Vancouver Canucks. Didn't get to spend a whole lot of time in Vancouver, and now you're forced into another consideration. And take us through what that process was like for you, Nate, in terms of, you're going to a good team in the Winnipeg Jets, but still there's upheaval in that. And it's not just about the hockey, even though in this case it has to be. So just walk us through deciding to waive to go to Winnipeg from Vancouver.
Yeah. At first, it was just such a whirlwind of things going on. There's a possibility, Matt Keir, my agent, called me and said, hey, there's a chance you get moved. There's teams out there that are interested. He said, we got a lot of things that are happening. A lot of teams are trying to get back and see where you're at and see where, the Canucks are at. And it really just happened incredibly quickly, where it was, hey, that Winnipeg had called and some other teams had called, and it was a lot. Just to try and go through, all the different scenarios that could have happened. Mm-hmm. I'm talking probably 24 hours. I mean, you hear about these free agent guys that are all of a sudden it goes like by hour, and I've never been through that, but man, is that what it felt like. It feels like you have to make a decision, and it's got to be quick, and you got to be as educated as you can. But I tried to slow the clock down a little bit and say, hey, I'll talk to you, Matt. I said, I'll talk to you again, tomorrow morning. I need a little bit of time just to process this.
Yeah.
And then I talked to Paul Stastny, and Paul was great. Like, he's a guy that I have a lot of respect for as a guy. And he just said, hey, when you're happy at the rink, you'll be happy at home, no matter where you are. Hockey, you're it is a job, but at the same time, you got to be happy with what you're doing. And he goes, I think that we have a great group here. He goes, I've really enjoyed my time, and I'm going back. This is before he had even signed. He's like, the deal's done. I just want to let you know that I'm going back too. So I think that was a big part for me, and seeing, this team, and everyone's like, oh, it's a veteran team. I think we came in here, Brandon Dillon and I come in here as like the 4th and 5th oldest guys on the team at 30, 31. Quite a bit of, which is wild, and playing in Washington where you're in the bottom half of the pack all the time, with how it's a veteran group as well. So once it came down and Matt came, like, Major called me, he's like, hey, Winnipeg has called the 3rd time. They really want you. You want to be wanted where and I think this is going to be a really good fit for you. I like the way that this is going to play out. And after I talked with Paul, I said, I think so too. I'm excited to try this and give it a whirl. And I talked with Mark Chipman and Chevy as well. And you just see a team that's going for it. And that's what, as a player, that's what you want. So that for me, I never was asked to wait. I just needed an extra little bit of time. Try to slow the time clock.
Yeah.
Did it feel weird? You talk about you were the bottom half of the dressing room age-wise in Washington. Now you're one of the older guys. Now you have to make a decision where before all the decisions were made for you. Is it kind of, do you ever think wow, that's happened fast?
Every single day. Billy and I looked at each other are we old now? What is happening? I feel 25 still, whatever. No, it's fun. It's a new it's a different part of your career, part of your life that you never thought, when you start playing, you're like, oh, you saw one of the younger guys. Schmidt's one of the younger guys. And all of a sudden, in Vegas, most of the guys were around the age that I'm at now, anywhere from 28 to 32. And, you come here and I think we got 5 guys that are 30 years old. That's about it. And we have a lot of guys that have played, which makes it a lot easier. So when you have a little bit more veteran group, even if they are a little younger, but as you guys know, the league is getting a little younger.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that are hitting 500 games when they're 25.
Right. 6
years old. And it's actually quite impressive to be able to see what some of these young guys do. But I actually I like it because I bring a lot of energy. And so when sometimes young guys know they have to match it.
Right.
They got to fall in line. They'll be like, oh man, all right, this guy's going, all right, I got to jump on board.
Which older guys were telling you to zip it in Washington? Because I used to get that a lot. They'd be like, hey, Pee Wee, zip it.
It was with Brooks Orpik, with all the love that he would give me that. But you know what? He was awesome. He did it more out of spite, just to see if I could, see the reaction he would get.
Right.
But man, he had a lot of fun with me. We had a lot of fun. I miss him. He's a good guy. He's a good man in the league. I hope he resurfaces someday. It's awesome.
You're going to hit 500 games this year. Not to jinx you, but I mean, when you look back, this could be a milestone season. Obviously, you look back as an undrafted player, and how difficult it has been. A ton of work every inch of the way. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of guys would look at 500 games in the National Hockey and go, okay, that's not a bad run. That's a pretty good milestone. But in your case, you fought for it pretty much every step of the way.
Yeah. I remember Jason Chimera, I think at 600 or 700 when I played with him. And I was like, man, do you know how cool that would be to get? And I bet I'm a little bit of ways away from there, but 500 games is I think it's pretty awesome to be able to say that you did that in the league. But yeah, undrafted guys, it's a little bit twofold, right? I was devastated not being drafted. I thought it was it, and that was it. Didn't get drafted, can't play. I won't be able to make it. And so I I just thought, I'll just go out and play. And I went to the University of Minnesota and did all that. But I think when you look at it now, it's gone by so quickly, and it's scary how fast it goes by. But I think that's the reason why guys always say, I can't wait until this. I can't wait until that part of the year. It's like, man, the fast forward button. Well, I can't wait for the playoffs. I can't wait till Christmas. I can't wait for the All-Star break. I can't wait till we go to the trip, in February to the Florida teams, and we get to go down there and watch the Super Bowl or whatever. It's like, yeah, but that November Tuesday game, versus Chicago, that just, you never know what could happen. And it could be one of the more memorable things that you do with the group. Never hit the fast forward button. And it's been so much fun to see where this kind of ride has taken us. And Ray, you got a heck of more games than I do, but it's just amazing how you look back on it and be like, wow, it's amazing how fast it went. And
you know what, Nate, that's an unbelievable point you make, because somebody asked me when I retired if I regretted anything. And I said, the only thing I regretted was not enjoying it more when I was in the middle of the slog. Like all those days that you go, man, I can hardly wait. This coach is an a-hole. I can hardly wait till he's finished. Just enjoy it for what it is, right? It's practice. It's like, do your thing, go on to the next. I lost some days there, and that's unbelievable. You should go speak. You should be a public speaker. You should go talk to the guys, man. Because I'm serious. That's exactly the way it should be.
Yeah, never hit the fast forward button. Yeah, it's like, well, I'd love to be in a playoff race right now. I was like, I'd love to be right here, right now. A couple days left in camp. You're looking forward to the first game of the year. We go to Anaheim to play them. Yeah, it's going to be great. But I'm excited. Like yesterday was a practice where the guys were a little tired. And you could see that, it was just excited. It was like, some guys were like me and Nate Bowie were just like, these are the practices that I live for. Some guys, I can't wait to get home. I want to go to bed. And they're like, oh, these are the best. I can't wait to guys are at today. I can't wait to see where, what happens, who's going to do something funny or, because you have a couple days, you have a couple, chances to have a little bit of fun with it. So I really like it, enjoy it.
Good for you, man. And look, we really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, it's the kickoff to the start of the NHL regular season. So you've got a lot on your plate. New start with the Winnipeg Jets. We wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thanks, gents. Appreciate it.
All right, Ray, we need to raise a glass to our guest today, Nate Schmidt, star defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets, brought to you by our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey. And, Nate is one of those guys, every time you see him in an interview, and it's not always fun and laughs and all of that. We've seen him historically after losses. I remember after, losing the Stanley Cup final, but he's so thoughtful. Right? Like there isn't anything that appears to be too daunting for him from a media perspective. He just answers the questions. And I liked how you jumped in when he talked about, again, it's a milestone year for him. If we can consider 500 games in the NHL a milestone, and I think we should. But just how he knows that you got to enjoy the moment. Every moment in the National Hockey League is a blessing.
Well, the thing that struck me is like, he knows that and he's still in.
Yeah.
I didn't get it until I had retired. And by the time you're at the end of your career, you can't get back those days. I should have enjoyed more in Hartford. I should have enjoyed more in Los Angeles. The Islanders, I think I was in my sweet spot. I just loved that team. But I spent too much time worrying about things that I should have brushed aside. And what's cool about Nate is he's in the middle of it. Like he's in the middle of his career.
Yeah.
And he gets it and he's enjoying it. And look, Dregs, you know the Winnipeg group really well. I've, done a lot of their games. They're a very serious business-minded group.
Yeah.
Like they're very focused. I think Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt are a breath of fresh air that team is going to benefit from aside from their play. Because that gives them two more defensemen to a defense that wasn't so great. And I think that's going to really help them. But, man, I think their personalities will really jazz that team.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Morrissey and Schmidt will play together. You've got Dillon and Pionk, and then Beaulieu and DeMello. As far as the top six goes, they went from being weak defensively to being pretty solid, I would say.
For sure they will. And, they miss Beaulieu when he went out. He's had some injury sidetracks the last couple of years. And they miss him. They miss his physicality. Dillon's a tough kid. Schmidt can skate. I think all of a sudden they look – I know a lot of people will look past them, but that's a very good team.
Yeah. Thanks to Nate Schmidt. Ray and Dregs Season 3, Episode 4, presented by Infinity, continues. Man, it's getting busy around the world of sports, isn't it? Chris Abbott from Coolbet.co is now joining the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, as he does every week. Chris, welcome. And I guess you're as well rested as you could be after an extended stay. I know you had heavy business meetings in Vegas. You're looking crisp. You're looking sharp as we
record. Don't lie to the people listening, Dregs.
I think he looks good. He's all cleaned up.
You got to get those eyes fixed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, well,
you're hanging in there, big boy. You're hanging in there.
The only thing is, I've been back in Toronto for 2 days. Family thing yesterday, and you guys love to record first thing in the morning. I'm not adjusted yet. I'm still on West Coast time, but I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you better be rested. I mean, really, as we were talking offline, you're entering probably the busiest time of the year, right? For sports betting. I mean, we had a pretty big boxing match on the weekend. You've got the NBA ready to go. There's goofiness of the National Football League baseball playoffs. The NHL, of course, kicking into finally an 82-game regular season this week. So you don't really know which way to turn some hours, I'm thinking.
Well, yeah, it's all over the place. College football, the CFL,
yeah.
F1 is coming down as well. The PGA is back up and running. We've got the Bryson Brooks match to look forward to. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole menu of things for the sports bettor. It's the most wonderful time of the year to steal a line from your World Junior coverage.
Hey, Chris, I'm curious. The fight on Saturday. How much juice does that get? There was a time where, a heavyweight championship bout of that magnitude would have dominated the sports scene, but it seemed like this one would have had more kick to it.
Yeah, I mean, the major heavyweight fights, especially this being a trilogy, and these guys, it was postponed from earlier in the summer. There was a lot of buzz around it, and having been in Las Vegas leading up to the fight, it was top of mind for a lot of people. So, the people who do like boxing are starting to feel like it's coming back a bit. There's also, a section of people who think some of these, Jake and Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather kind of spectacles are putting the light back on boxing a little bit. Love it or hate it, but it's been good for the sport and good for interest, I believe.
Yeah, love it or hate it. What do you guys think of the Koepka DeChambeau match? The reason I bring it up, I spent a bit of time with a few golf buddies this weekend. Don't like it at all. Yeah, I mean, you're trying to maximize whatever this rift has been for charitable reasons. But it according to these guys, and I kind of feel their point in this, it diminishes whether or not there was actually something real happening between these two guys. But is the betting world looking at that, or are they looking at it in a way of, I want to see these two guys go head to head?
Well, as we've talked about before, golf betting is actually quite popular. And you look at these two guys and finally, again, love it or hate it, some personality, some animosity on the golf course, which is supposed to be, the gentleman's sport of all gentlemen's sports. So much like the Jake and Logan Paul stuff, these one-offs, they're exciting. It will generate revenue. It'll be, you'll be able to bet on every hole, and it'll be solely focused on these two guys, and it'll be an off day from other sports when they do it. So yeah, I don't know. It's exciting. I think, it'll draw attention. It'll probably get eyes on golf that aren't normally on golf, but for the purists, I'm sure they'll have some disdain.
Well,
right.
Okay. So, the only thing I got to say is, so they're talking about this rivalry. Like, what are they going to do? Wrestle? Like they're playing golf.
That would be better.
Like, yeah, I mean, like, I'm mad at you. I'm not going to give you that 2-foot putt. Like, stop it.
Well, I mean, it's worked.
And they're playing 12 holes. What the hell?
Yeah,
if you're going to play. I know it's
worked
all the
way.
TV window and all that, but geez, man.
It's worked all the way back for the Romans in the Colosseum, though, right? Vince McMahon's whole model, like, you build up a big fight.
That's going back a long time. If they're going to throw him in with the Lions, I'm watching.
But just that the spectacle of it all and hyping up the fight, it worked for Don King. It worked for Vince McMahon. It'll probably work for these guys as well.
Yeah, we'll see. One of the weekly staples of in-season betting is the Weekly Predictor, right? Where you've got, 7 games you can try and offer up a free prediction on, and then there's some pricing at the end of all of that. That's ready to get going again, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the most popular features that we have at Coolbet. Every Saturday, it's not a new concept. You've been doing it ever since I remember years ago. I used to get these little tiny envelopes, and we'd submit to whoever's running the pool or whatever, right? But now we do it online. It's a little bit easier. Pick 7 games off the Saturday slate. Obviously, always include the Canadian teams when they play, and just predict your score, and we accumulate it throughout the year. It's a little bit of fun. We do it for the NFL as well, and keeps people coming back.
Excellent stuff. Well, we'll be checking in, and we'll be making our free predictions come Saturday. Thanks for doing this, Kris.
My pleasure, guys, and buckle up as your lives are about to get crazy for a few months.
Yep, it's time. Be well, Kris.
Ask Ray Dregs anything. You can send your questions to us via Twitter or Instagram at Ray and Dregs, or on our website, rayandregs.com. Ask Ray and Dregs anything is presented by Endy.ca. Endy, the 2021 winner of the best mattress in Canada. We're dedicating Ask Ray and Dregs anything basically to Instagram this week, Ray. But before we get to that, your thoughts. I mean, this feels like just me being Captain Obvious here. John Cooper has signed a 3-year extension with the Tampa Bay Lightning. The only thing that surprises me about this is it's not a longer term. That surprises me a little bit, but he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I would have thought 5 years, but maybe Cooper needed new representation. For those that don't know, he is a lawyer. So
yes,
maybe he negotiates. I don't know. Maybe he needs a new lawyer. I'm going to ask him tomorrow. I'm going to say, did you fire your lawyer over this? Yeah. Man, what a run he's been on, eh? Hard to believe
ridiculous.
He's been here so long, and from the Steve Yzerman to Julien Brisebois general manager group, they looked like they were going to win. Then they got booted in the rear end, and they changed their team a bit. Now back-to-back cups. They've got an excellent team. He's every bit a part of this community as anybody else. And you think of Tampa, and it looks right with John Cooper behind the bench.
He really comes as advertised too, doesn't he? Like, he's an approachable guy. You can have some laughs with him, but you can also see when you see him on the bench, not that he's certainly not flamboyant or boisterous, but you can see the wheels turning. Right? Like he is playing a chess match when he's coaching in the NHL.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good point, Dregs. I think more and more coaches have to think on their feet and make adjustments, and it gets harder and harder because the cap squeezes your lineup and you've got less options. But you've got to be able to move people around in the course of a game, and I think Cooper does it as well as anybody. And all things being equal, considering the NHL going to China for the Olympics, he's going to be going there for a month too, as he's the head coach of Canada's Olympic team. Been quite a year for him.
It really has. All right, Ask Ray and Dregs anything. Let's start with Zed Tobby from Instagram. Wants to know, who's your surprise playoff team this year, Ray?
I like that because we're 181 days from the playoffs. Really it's hard to pick because you never know who the matchups are going to be. Like, you could say Florida, but what if Florida runs into Tampa in the first round again?
Yeah.
Tough to be a surprise if you're out in 6 games.
Yeah.
Which easily could happen. But I think Florida could do some damage. I do think Dallas can be really good. And they're in a division that might give a little bit of a pathway.
Right.
I think the same thing of the Oilers. Like, that Pacific Division is a train wreck.
Yeah, I know.
There's, trying to pick the top from the bottom. So when I pick Dallas, I also pick Winnipeg.
Right.
Because as I said earlier, I think Winnipeg's one of the better teams in the league.
All right. So you're kind of throwing it out there. Could be Dallas.
Could be Dallas, could be Winnipeg, could be Edmonton.
Yeah. Okay. This one you're going to love.
I'll tell you if I'm going to love it or not.
No, you're going to love it because I just know you've got so much respect for this man. Why is Ron Francis so underrated? He's always left off lists. He didn't even make the Hockey News top 75. So I guess the implication here is, why is he so underrated as a former star player in the National Hockey League, not as a manager?
Because he never, ever talked about himself. He never played with any flair. He would make a spectacular play, and that would be the exception. The thing with Ron was he was great, Hall of Fame great, from the beginning of his career all the way through till he was, well into his late 30s. And it was the same thing all the time. So he was the star of our team in Hartford. And he was just entering into what he was, the greatest part of his career. Now you're the number 2 center behind Mario Lemieux.
Yeah.
Nobody talked about Ron Francis in Pittsburgh. Right? Like how and
there's a lot to talk about there, yeah.
Yeah, so like I was the number 2 center on our team. Oh, I was thrilled to be playing against Ronnie. Like, you lose all the time. You lose every face-off. He's a better passer. He's smarter. He's bigger. And then he went to Carolina, and, it was a real that's a quiet place, or certainly was then, more so than now.
Right.
That's why he's underrated. Guy's in the Hall of Fame, and he's criminally underrated.
Yeah. We've got our buddy Jeff O'Neill has got to come back on the podcast at some point soon. He tells I thought it was a great story. We have a mutual friend, Dave Lilac. I think they played OHL together in Guelph way back in the day. Liler, his nickname, was invited to one of these training camps in Carolina. And I mean, to hear O tell the story, it was pretty obvious Dave Lilac wasn't going to make the Hurricanes that year. Okay. Anyway, he's making the best of it. So O is sitting on the bench. They're scrimmaging. He looks up and he goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "There's Liler out there on the left side with Ronnie Francis in scrimmage." And he goes, next thing I know, he wires this pass at Ronnie like a foot in the air, hits him in the ankle, and down goes Ron Francis in a heap in like the first script. And O-Dog is dying on the bench because his buddy just took out Ronnie Francis. And one of the coaches came over and, "Oh, who is this guy? Get him out of here."
Be the last shift with Ron.
That was the last shift with Ronnie. All right. Josh Joseph wants to know, what's the best round of golf that we have ever played? So mine automatically comes to mind, but you start. Best round of golf you ever played. Now, it may not be the best score, though, right? There could be other factors that are, depending on where. You've played around the world, so.
Yeah, I shot 75 at Turnberry in Scotland.
That's pretty tidy.
Yeah, I holed out from off the green 3 times. Tough to think that's going to happen again.
Was there cloud cover? How didn't you get hit by lightning at the end of that round?
Oh, Dregs. The score was unbelievable. I would say it couldn't have been any more lucky.
Yeah.
The best round I've ever played was at my home course in Vancouver. I'm 1 under par on the 16th tee. I'm nervous. My hands are, I've never been under par before. Yeah. I hit my drive into a body of water that's not in play. I didn't even know how, you couldn't even hit it there.
Right.
I smothered it left, almost hit myself in the shin. And so I make double bogey. Now I'm 1 over. I double bogeyed the 17th hole. Now I'm 3 over. And I bogey the 18th hole, 4 over. And I walk in and guys are like, "How'd you play?" And I'm like, 75. And they're like, "Oh, awesome." I felt so defeated. It was brutal.
You let a 71 just walk right out the door.
Oh, right out the door. Poof, gone.
I've got
what about you?
Quick ones. Yeah, 3 quick ones. Shot 81 at Spyglass. This is years ago.
Nice.
And the day after, I shot 84 at Pebble Beach, which, Pebble isn't the hardest golf course, as you know. And on this day, there wasn't a breath of wind, so it'll never play easier than it did that day. But I say this again, just out of respect to a former guest. I won the Jeff Odgers Invitational, I think, at Carlton Trail near Spy Hill, Saskatchewan.
I'm guessing there was a breath of wind that day.
Oh yeah, I shot. Well, it's a 9-holer, right? It's where we grew up playing golf. I shot 36, 36, 72 to win the golf tournament.
What's the prize at the Odgers Invitational? Is it a?
You know what?
Is it a breathe right? Is it a breathe right? I think
a breathe right. No, you know what? It's like a Husqvarna motorized trimmer. Of course it would be. No, it was a good event, and of course you got this little trophy. The trophy was like the cheesy golfer on top of a wooden chunk, right? So anyway, all right. I guess that's us for Ray Dregs. There's one more from one more. Sellin49 wants to know what the must-have lawn game is going to be at the Cabbage, and that is so easy. It's cornhole, of course. Everybody knows that. You know what? When some of the seniors come over, and I'm approaching that age, we'll drift out the bocce. There's nothing better than a good game of bocce. No.
I'll tell you one thing. In Trail, BC, they had bocce pits.
Yeah.
And if people my age, I was like in our early 20s, if we decided we wanted to go play there, the older Italian guys would have shot us on sight. They said we had no respect, they said, for the pits. Those were theirs. They weren't theirs. They were in the town. They were for everyone. No, they weren't. They were for those guys.
But what does that mean? You had to wear white pants. You had to wear like soft-soled shoes.
No.
You can't
no. They were wearing the work pants still.
Oh, okay.
The white T-shirt. That doesn't really fit. Or after dinner they'd wear kind of like the collared short sleeve dress shirt. That was the attire there. We were not. You just weren't allowed to play.
No, you can't go wrong with bocce or in this case cornhole. It's best. Hey, check out Ray and Dregs social channels for our new feature this year. It is Rapid Fire, and it's presented by netcoins.ca. Crypto made easy. Last week, Mark Giordano, and this week we're going to have our guest Nate Schmidt taking in Rapid Fire. It's all part of what we do here on the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Man, you're in Tampa Bay. You've got a busy week coming into, what have you got? So you go Tampa Bay, and then you've got Thursday's Leaf game, I trust.
Yeah, Toronto at Ottawa, and then I'm home Friday morning. So it's fun to get back on the road. It's fun to do games. It's Dregs, I know we're still in a little bit of swirl, but it feels like we're inching our way forward a little bit.
It does.
And we'll probably have something that's going to go sideways, but I don't know. I'm looking at the arena. Literally, it's right out the window, and I'm like, damn, it's nice to be back at it again.
Yeah. I'll be curious what the access is. Like traditionally in a morning skate, you drift over there, you watch the morning skate, maybe you go listen to the coach media avails. You go down near the dressing room and, again, this is historically pre-COVID. You can spend time with a veteran player, catch them in the hallway. What do you like? What's going on here? That's where I don't have that level of access anymore, right?
No, we won't. I know, like, to get into the rink tomorrow, you got to show your vaccination card. And so we'll be, that gets you in, and then everything will be, like I would say, Dregs, at the big events will be for every event. And are you zone 1? Are you zone 2? It'll be on your pass. And
sure,
some people will be able to get in the halls. I think very few. Most will come up. I think everything's done press conference wise now.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, enjoy the week. And then the weekend, play a little golf on the weekend, maybe. What are you thinking? See how it goes?
No, I don't think so. I think the kids got soccer, and so probably I may go hit some balls. Still be good enough weather. Gotta say, my 15-year-old played his first. Well, he's 14, but played his first road soccer game. He's in the Whitecaps Academy, and they went to Salt Lake City, and it was pretty cool to watch how excited he was to go play at a beautiful facility in Salt Lake. And
that's awesome.
They tied 1-1, and so it was cool to see. I was really happy for him.
Yeah, good for you. Good for Cammie. That's exciting. All right, well, we're going to wrap up episode 4 as we always do, just acknowledging our great partners who make this podcast possible. Our title sponsor, Infinity. Thank you. Visit infinity.ca. You can book a contactless test drive ASAP. Coolbet.co, the free-to-play sports and casino games website. By our friends at Canadian Club Whiskey, who ask, are you over beer? By Andy.ca, remember, use code RD75, RD75, and you will save $75 on a mattress. And welcome back to Boston Pizza. And check out their BP Kids cards. They're back, and you're going to want to help them out. Special thank you to all of you for continuing to listen, to rate, share the podcast on the following podcast platforms, wherever you consume your podcast, and for following us on our YouTube channel as well. That's episode 4. Episode 5, promising to be a dandy. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take care.